You don't keep falling because you're not trying hard enough, and you don't keep falling because God has given up on you. But there is a reason this keeps happening, and if you don't understand it, you're going to keep fighting the wrong battle. Most men, well, they think the fall happens in the moment. It doesn't. The fall starts long before that happens, and James shows us exactly where. We're going to be looking at one very short passage, few verses, but if you're willing to be honest, you might actually just discover that what you've been calling a sin problem is actually a pattern problem. And until you understand the pattern, same battle, they'll keep showing up. Most men are trying to win a battle that was already lost hours earlier. And that's the hard truth. The temptation wasn't the beginning, it was the result. You pray, you ask God for strength, you tell yourself this time will be different, then somehow you find yourself right back where you swore you'd never return. And after enough failures, you start asking questions like, why do I keep doing this? Or what's wrong with me? Why can't I beat this? But what if you've been asking the wrong question? What if the real question isn't, why did I fail? What if the real question is, what happened before I fell? James writes, each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, it brings forth death. Notice the order. James doesn't start with sin. He doesn't even start with temptation. He starts with desire, then temptation, then sin, then destruction. There's a sequence, a progression, it's a trail, and most of us spend all of our time just staring at the moment we fell while completely ignoring the trail that led us there. James, he's telling us to look earlier, before the failure took place, before the regret, before the guilt. Looking back on my own life, I realized I spent years focusing on the wrong thing. Every time I failed, I'd focused on the failure. I focused on the behavior. I focused on the promise that I broke. I focused on how disappointed I was in myself. What I never asked was, what happened before it? What was I carrying? What was I trying not to feel? And when I finally started asking those questions, something became very obvious. There usually wasn't one thing happening. There was a stack of them, a little loneliness, a little anger, rejection, a little discouragement, a little exhaustion, and a little hopelessness. None of those things felt overwhelming by themselves, but they kept stacking. And eventually the weight became heavy enough that I started looking for relief. And that's what took me years to understand. I wasn't always chasing the sin. I was often just chasing relief. And James uses the words lured and enticed. That's really hunting language, fishing language. A fish isn't caught because it suddenly becomes stupid. A fish is caught because the bait is placed where its appetite already exists. And the enemy, he doesn't need to create weaknesses. He looks for the openings. Moments when you're tired, moments when you're isolated, moments when you're feeling discouraged, and moments when you're carrying more than you actually realize. That's when the bait gets attractive, and that's when the lie actually starts sounding reasonable. That's when the trail begins turning towards the fall. And I think this is where a lot of men really misunderstand their battle. Most men, they think that they're fighting a specific sin. Lust, anger, pornography, alcohol, overeating, escapism, whatever form it takes, but often the behavior isn't the real destination. It's the relief. And just think about that for a minute. The man who loses himself in pornography may be just looking for a connection. The guy that explodes in anger, well, he just might be looking for control. The man who drinks way too much might be looking for escape. And the man who buries himself in work, well, I think he might just be looking for significance. And the man who scrolls for hours, well, he's probably looking for distraction. Different behaviors, same goal, relief. For a few moments, that weight, it disappears. And for a few moments, the loneliness, it gets quieter. And for a few moments, the pressure, it eases. And for a few moments, the disappointment fades. But when it's over, that weight, it's still there. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. The loneliness is still there. The rejection is still there. The discouragement is still there. The stress, it's all still there. And now guilt has joined that pile as well. The relief, it was temporary. The weight wasn't. And because the real problem was never addressed, the cycle starts all over again. And that's why simply trying harder doesn't really work, because you're trying to remove the behavior while ignoring what keeps driving you towards it. The sin, it might change, but the pattern, it doesn't. So here's the question. Do you actually know your pattern? Not the sin, your pattern. Do you know what normally happens before you fall? Do you know the emotions, the situations, the thoughts that you're having? even the times of day, the conversations, or are you still treating every failure like it came out of nowhere? Because most failures leave tracks, and if you never study the tracks, well, you'll keep getting blindsided by something that has been predictable for years. There's usually a lie involved too. Maybe you've heard it just this once. I've heard it. Most men have. You probably have as well. Just this once. But it's never just this once, is it? Because the stack, it's still there. Then another lie shows up. Nobody knows. Nobody will know. And if the conviction actually starts pressing in, here's another one that often follows. I deserve this. After the week I've had, after everything I've dealt with, I deserve this. But none of those lies actually solve the real problem. They only delay it. Now you got to hear me out carefully on this one. This isn't condemnation, brother, and this isn't about beating yourself up. And it definitely isn't about pretending sin doesn't matter. It does. But shame has never produced lasting freedom. Clarity does. The fact that you're still fighting matters, and the fact that you're still watching this matters. The fact that you want freedom matters. And if you were truly comfortable with a sin, you wouldn't be sitting here watching this video. But I am appreciating it. Thank you. Conviction isn't God pushing you away. It's inviting you to pay attention, not just to the sin, to the trail, to the warning signs, to the stack that you've been carrying. And if you're done doing this alone, there's a brotherhood being built. Link is below. And before you ask God for another victory, ask Him for clarity. Ask Him to show you the trail. Ask Him to show you what you've been refusing to see. Right? Grab a piece of paper and think about the last 3 times you fell. Then don't write about the sin. Write about the 24 hours before it. What were you feeling? Who were you avoiding? What happened at work? What happened at home? What were you carrying? What were you telling yourself? Start looking for the trail, because if the trail is the same every time, that's where the battle actually begins. And I want to leave you with one thought. You keep fighting the moment while ignoring the trail that leads to it. And that's why the same battle keeps showing up. You're waiting for a temptation to arrive before you start paying attention. And James, he's telling us to pay attention earlier, before the temptation, before the fall, before the regret. Because once you can identify the trail, you can start interrupting it. And once you start interrupting it, you're no longer fighting blind. You're finally fighting the real battle. Victory will come, brother, but you got to be strong.